Hello, everybody. Welcome in. We'll get started here in just a moment. Apologies on the delay. We're just kind of updating some last minute stuff, but looks like we have quite a few people joining. So we got quite a few people joining. Thank you guys for all joining. We'll get started here in just a few moments, maybe at 12:06. We'll give about 3 minutes for more people to join. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We can start putting some eyes on it. We have a few people here behind the scenes, so we'll all work through some stuff together, find some solutions for you. So again, if you have specific questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will go through them in the order in which they are received. So feel free to add those when you can. All right. We got more people joining. So, we got one in there. So feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. Feel free to ask in the chat. We did get one question from Andy. Thank you very much. But like I said, we'll give it another 2 minutes or so, and we'll get started, and we'll take the orders in which we get them. Give it about another minute because we are still looking for questions. So if you have any, we've got quite a few attendees. Feel free to put them in the Q&A. And like I said, we'll just take them in that order. So we got another one. Thank you very much. Marcus got yours as well. All right, so we got 2 questions in. We'll give it like about another 30 seconds or so. We'll kind of start at the top. All right. So I guess we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining again. Today is May 7th, Lunch and Learn. So we're going to start at the top. We do have 2 questions. And again, if you're just now joining, which someone did just join the lobby, feel free to put a question in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll take them in the order in which they received. So the first question that we have is from Andy. And it says, how to import delimited text when the design time, I know nothing other than the file is delimited when at design time. Andy, I'm going to unmute you. If you could feel free to give us some more insight onto what your use case is going to be.
Well, this is just it. At design time, I, the designer, don't know anything. It's all going to come in at runtime. It could be all I know is that the input files that I want to import are plain text. They're not Excel files. They're plain text and they're delimited. That is it. That is all I know. I don't know if they're delimited with a comma or a tab or a pipe or a tilde or a semicolon or a dot. I don't know if the quote character is a single quote or a double quote, and I'm not sure the import Excel or CSV step handles single quotes. They might even have escape characters like the backslash, and I'm not sure that import Excel or CSV even knows about escape characters. But, these files could be anything. All I know is that it's text and it's delimited, not fixed length. That's it. So what am I supposed to do? Because when I pull in the import step, right, it wants me to decide right then and there what the delimiter is, and even what the output type is, and even the number of columns. But these things I don't know. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm gonna see, we do have a couple panelists over here. Um, Josh, do you have any insight for me on that?
No, I think you're going to have to figure out some way programmatically to figure out before you hit that step. The step itself isn't like kind of self-aware in the fact that it knows what the delimiting like kind of string value is. You would have to do something pre that step to figure out what it is. I mean, there's a couple things you could do here. And like, obviously, if we can't figure out what the delimiting factor is, maybe try a bunch, right? Like, try it with comma, try it with colon, stuff like that. Uh,
Well, two things. Number one, this is supposed to be a fully automated process. So the user just grabs a whole bunch of text files, dumps them in the multi-file whatever, and says go. That's number one.
correct.
And any of these files could be different. Now, the other thing is that, when you're pulling in the import Excel or CSV step, the choice as to what the delimiter is doesn't
Constant.
have, it's a constant. It's not, you can't choose select from flow or run converter or any of those good things. So I actually have a flow which makes an intelligent guess simply by looping through all the different characters. First the tab, and then
Hmm.
the tilde, the pipe, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yep,
cetera, and it makes a guess as to what the delimiter might be. But even if that were absolutely perfect, I can't take the result of that and put it into the import or CSV uh, steps setting for the delimiter. It's got to be a constant.
for sure.
And there's some things.
You would have to either navigate to the appropriate step, depending on you said you built something that kind of takes a guess. You'd have to
Correct.
navigate to the appropriate step given the guess, right? Using maybe like a string match step to go to the appropriate one,
Yeah.
based off of the guess, or
Right.
something like that. But right now that step is not constant, or that step
Okay.
is constant. It's not a runtime selectable kind of thing. Obviously, we can put in a feature request to have that runtime selectable, but the expectation is now you would have to know what file you're dealing with at design time. And of course, your guess
Well,
would have to
yeah.
navigate to the appropriate step where the value is set
See,
to constant.
the problem is I need to know a hell of a lot more than that. I need to know the data type that this file is supposed to be importing into. So not only number of columns, but the data type of each column, text or number or date or whatever, right? And again, that I probably only know at runtime. It's probably going to be something like if I find a file and it has 5 columns, oh, okay, it's got to go into this table.
Hmm.
But if it has 11 columns, it's going to go into another table. All of these decisions have got to be made um, at runtime. So I wish there was some way that I could just simply import the file and pull it into some kind of generic structure, let's say a list of lists of strings. right?
Yeah.
And then I can then just say, okay, how many lists did I get and how long is one list? Um, and then, so I get the dimensions of what I just imported, and then I can make some programmatic choices from there. Now, but just also about the different characters, not just the delimiter, but
Mhm.
the importer CSV, the import Excel or CSV step. Does it understand that there could be that the quoting character could be a single quote as opposed to a double quote?
Could the importing character be a single quote or a double quote? I am not sure right
Yeah.
offhand. I think
Well,
I
I'm,
was looking at this. I was looking at this question. It looks like you asked this a couple times last week, the same question. And I think Jeremy told me he was going to give you a kind of truth table example of how to do this. Um,
well, he gave me the string match
oh, okay, gotcha,
thing. Yeah. Well, like I
gotcha.
said, I came up with this flow which guesses as the delimiter, but I can't use it because the delimiter isn't decided at it can't be decided at runtime, unfortunately. And then the other thing is, does the import, well, I'm pretty sure import Excel or CSV understands the double quote, right? Because that's been part of the CSV spec for decades.
Yeah, yeah.
But occasionally, especially when you're dealing with Oracle, as we do, you have the single quote as the quoting character.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, instead of doubling a double quote to stand for a literal double quote, you have escape characters, and
Hmm.
I don't think importer Excel or CSV even understands the concept of an escape character, does it?
I'm not sure it does. I don't know right offhand if it does or not, but
Okay.
I don't think it does though.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. That was insightful.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, yeah, I guess I need some more features on this thing, but that's my use case. I have just mystery files coming at me, and all two things I know, they're text and they're delimited, and that's it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So I do have another question. Thank you again, Josh, for helping me out there.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
the question is from Marcus, and it says, is it possible to output data from a form using the timer form exit component? It would be great if that exit path worked similarly to buttons on forms that would output all data from the form to be used later in the flow. So Marcus, I can make some, I'll unmute you, but I can make some assumptions here. Feel free to elaborate a little bit while I kind of pull this up. Um, can you give us a little more insight to what you're trying to have it done? Basically, like send data out, even if it saves it temporarily, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So, thanks,
Yeah,
thanks to just one time for you guys for running this. I appreciate it. But essentially, what we're doing is we're capturing just like a list of data through a mixed type repeater.
right.
Um, when the user continues or navigates away from that form, what it does is it takes the all objects within that repeater, and then it saves them to our answer data type, right? And then later down in in the later process of the application, we're able to use those answer values. The ask basically came from one of our clients that, well, what happens if I let my form time out, but I had three of those questions answered, right? Well, after the timeout, the timer exit essentially allows you to take a custom path out of this form that says, okay, we'll go run a process or go do something, so that way I can just, kill the flow essentially. One that helps us save resources and any running flows that could kind of be hanging out. Basically, we have a client who has many tabs open, kind of doing the same process in different workflow sessions. And so the idea was, well, we would hate to lose data if we accidentally let it go past, whatever our specified timeout session is. So my hope was on that timer exit outcome path, can I just get that list of objects to run into our subflow that says go save everything, right? So that way I can go to the client and say, well, you let the form timeout. It is unfortunate. That's how most applications work these days. I just figured with that path on the timer exit that we'd be able to get that same set of data that I could just run through a subflow and then basically run the end flow step. So the ask really comes from, we would like to retain the data if possible, and then just being able to get it out of the form just like a button does would be extremely helpful, because it would allow us to sort of do that due diligence on our side and say, well, we've at least retained any information you had before that form timed out. Yeah, I guess that's the best way I can put it, but
No, that makes sense.
yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Um, let's see here. So
And we have tried like if you look at the outcomes section in the properties on the right, we've tried things like output data as list, which came out with some really interesting thing, or like step data as list. Output data changes also returned some really interesting things that didn't seem to work for us. Um, so yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I don't, from kind of tinkering with it over the past 24 hours or so, it doesn't look like there's anything today that we could use. I just wasn't sure if there was something you guys knew about that maybe I didn't. Um, but based on sort of this use case, would this be something available for like a feature request, or kind of how you guys would want to look at something like this?
um I'm just doing some brainstorming here. Again, Josh, if you have any insight, feel free to chime in, but I'm the only thing I can really think of. Uh,
If you you see that timer exit right there, I'm pretty sure that does output the text box. Um, so
it says it does on timer exit down here.
so let's set this thing to expire timer exit in like 10 seconds. Let's type something in and see if it persists. Okay.
That kind of.
Yep. And let's debug. Type in, oh, not sure what that is.
Normal. I am on a training.
Yeah, close and save this. Let's open it back up. You're on a training instance.
Yeah, because I have version 9 installed on my local. We're internally on training team. We're kind of for everyone out there. We're gearing up to launch version 9, so we have a 9 on our local. So I kind of just spun up a training instance for this and see if it'll work. If not, I can rebuild. There we go.
Type in something there really quick and then just set it, I guess, look away. Click off it or something. No path for outcome. Hit close and let's drag that outcome path to the end step. Close and save and let's debug again. Okay, now click on the right click the form. View inputs and outputs. So it did pop out text box 25. If you go into the form, if you click on the form really quick, Robert, like in the debugger or outside of the debugger, hit edit the form. Click on the text box. You should have, you see that timer exit? It's going to be like an outcome scenario for you. So it should say required. You can switch it to optional or something like that, right? But it's just going to work like a normal button.
Yep, I found it.
Perfect.
That is awesome. Nope, that is my inability to pay attention to the details. Thank you guys so much.
No, it's a very well hidden feature for us. You know, we hide the good features for ourselves. Yeah.
Selfish. No, all right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank
That's
y'all.
really
No
helpful.
Get any more questions? Feel free to, if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A if you have any specific questions for us. And thank you guys for the one so far. Do we have any more questions in the chat? 30 seconds or so. There we go. We got one more. Thank you. I had a question about truth table outputs. Okay, I'll unmute you. Whenever you are ready, Sean.
Hi.
Hello.
So I I have a truth table,
Okay.
and this truth table I would like to basically one input uh, gets put in, so just a single string input gets put in, and based off that string input, it outputs a series. There's associated strings that are outputted to it,
Okay.
right? And then I wanted, so what I wanted to do was to then take the output that comes from this table,
Mhm.
and then sort of, I guess, um, map the, I guess, individual uh, m- man, it's hard to explain.
No, it's definitely hard to articulate.
And then I want to, so if you have, I guess, like a column 1, column 2, column 3 of whatever strings, I want to then map those individual column values that are associated with that input
Sure.
to an output for a subflow, basically.
All right. So just to clarify, so we have you're saying you have basically 3 inputs that are strings. Is
Oh,
that
oh,
right?
oh, no, no. Oh, one input for a string, but that string
Okay.
can, this particular one has a bunch of different, it has like, I think like what,
Yeah.
like 10 different 10
Okay.
different values associated to that one string. So say if it was like you had like one, your input string was say, I don't know, John, and then column 1 was his age, column 2 was his last name, column 3 was a 4-digit employee ID. So I would want to then take the output from, so basically his age, his last name, and his employee ID, and I would want to map them
into that field.
individually.
I think I understand what you're trying
Yeah.
to do here. So let's say you have a truth table and it takes in one single string.
Mhm.
That string could either be a name, a social security number, or an email address, right? You're using the truth table to basically decide what field you need to modify given the input, right?
Sort of.
Yep.
So I'm using this truth table for, in a as a data flow in a form. I'll say this, and and the input for it is determined off like a drop down within the form. This drop down has several different string values. It's a static list for a drop down. Based off what the user puts in, I want to then go in and check I guess, for the associated strings to that input. And then I want to take each of those outputs based off that string based off the truth table and display them onto the form.
So I guess I'm trying to think about this. So you pick the field that you want to display, and then from there it gets that value from that specific field. Is that the concept?
It won't be a one-to-one sort of thing. So I'm actually now trying to wonder if perhaps a truth table is even the way to go about doing this, because man, I'm not doing a great job explaining this.
If you want, Sean, we can take this offline, and schedule a call later to kind of do like a one-on-one session with you, discussion what you're doing. Me and Robert we'll happily do that if you think
Sure.
if you think you benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that could be that could be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Let's have Rob. If you could put
Yeah.
your
Email in the chat or email
yeah.
me. Yeah. And we'll schedule something because we can't have you, because we post all these to YouTube, so we can't have you share your screen and show
Right.
us what you're working with,
Of course.
just for confidentiality. But in a more private session, we can look at it all together. Just because it is kind of hard to make the connecting loops of what your actual use case is. And you might be right, the truth table might not be the most ideal, but it might be ideal. It might just be a small setting thing.
Right.
Um,
Here, I'll go ahead and post it here, and we can talk more then.
All right, thank you. Get him on. Gotcha. So I will reach out here in just a few moments and set something up with you. But I think that's probably gonna be the path of least resistance, is taking a look at what you're actually working with, because it is, and you know, to be fair, it is hard to articulate sometimes when, because it is kind of a string goes in and we're trying to match this with a true table, and the string goes, it ends up
Yeah.
sounding like a Dr. Seuss book. But
Yeah, I
um,
understand.
yeah, so I appreciate the question though. But like I said, we can find a resource for you.
Sure.
All right, so I have it in the Q&A. What we'll do is we have no new questions as far as I know. All right. We will go ahead and just close it out so we can get this mixed up for YouTube for the first couple folks. Again, we are hosting again tomorrow, and then like I said, Sean, I'll send you an email here in the next couple minutes.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everybody.